Why does African keep building for the West instead of itself, guys? But this is something I've wanted to talk about for a while, and I've overthought this thought, just my thoughts. And today I came across something small, and I'm gonna mention it here. It was written back in the 60s, and I think that's the reason why I actually wanted to make this video. So here is a thought or a number I want you guys to sit for with a second. More than 70% of the world's cobalt, you know, the mineral inside basically every phone, battery, every laptop, even every electric car, you know, it comes out of the ground in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But anyway, these things are not refined there, and they're not turned into anything there. Just dug out by hand, you know. In a lot of documented cases, you'd see that children who are as young as 6 or 7 are done doing this digging, and then this raw material gets shipped out raw. But by the time that same cobalt comes back to this continent, because I know the refining of these things, it doesn't happen here, when it comes back to this continent, which is Africa, it's not cobalt anymore. It's literally an iPhone. That's the best example I can give, bro. With a markup that has nothing to do with the people who pull it out of the earth. I mean, go and look up the price of an iPhone, bro. It's not cheap. It's double the price, bro, what they're selling out in the first world countries, right? But we all know this is not a new story. That's the oldest story on the continent, you know. Just wearing a different mineral this time. This time there's a different mineral in play here. It's not cobalt right now. But here's the version of it that's happening right now, today, that most people haven't clocked yet. We all know that Kenya has become one of the world's biggest hub for something called AI data labeling. What I mean by AI data labeling is that the human the human work behind making chatbots and AI systems safe. And real investigations have been done, okay, by the Time magazine among them also found them they all found that Kenyan workers doing that labor for, let's say, OpenAI, were paid between roughly $1.30 and $2 an hour. All you have to reviewing some of the worst materials on the internet, so the finished product could be sold back to the rest of the world as clean, safe, and ready to use. That's so sad, man. I mean, same shape as the cobalt here, right? But the raw material is different this time. The raw material is not the mineral. I mean, you'd say it's the attention, it's the psychology, and the labor, which is extracted here from us, which is cheap. But then this labor we give gets refined somewhere else. Then it gets sold back to us at a price that has nothing to do with where it actually came from. There's a phrase, guys, for this actually, and this is the thing that made me make this video, and it's the oldest, and most people saying it. It's actually not what people think, how they think about it when they say it. And this phrase was brought back in the 60s by a guy named Kwame Nkrumah. He wrote about this back in the 60s. He called this phrase the neo-colonialism. And his actual point wasn't about flags and soldiers here. Okay, it was that a country can be completely officially independent, okay, and still have its entire economic direction controlled from somewhere else through capital instead of conquest, underwater. He said that the whole result of that arrangement is that foreign investment ends up being used for extraction, okay, and not development. And that the gap it creates doesn't shrink over time, guys. That's one thing I've come to see. The gap that extraction has done and not development, this gap hasn't shrunk. It has actually grown over time. Guys, this nigga wrote this decades ago, before even a single smartphone was ever invented. But go read that, go read about neocolonialism next to a cobalt mine or a Nairobi data labeling office. Okay, and it won't feel like it's an old text anymore. It feels like it's current. Man, I felt this shit, bro, when I actually read about this. But I'll be honest about where this gets uncomfortable for me personally, you know, because I don't think it's fair to point at this pattern like I'm standing completely outside of it, because I'm literally in the epicenter of it. I'm in Nairobi or Nairobi. If you guys have watched my channel, you see that in my previous videos, I used to build with the AI, you know. So I used to build with the AI tools, you know. I mean, putting it that way, I'd say I use the same systems that this exact labor pipelines helps make this possible for me. I use the same systems, but there's a real tension in criticizing an extraction economy while also being in some small way a customer of it. You know, I don't think the answer is guilt. For me, I don't being guilty isn't the answer for me. I don't think. I think the answer is just being honest about which side of the pipeline you're actually standing on, you know, instead of pretending the pipeline doesn't run through your own life too. That's what I know. You need to be in both feet. Both of your feet should be in one side. But here's the actual question underneath all of this. And it's not about should Africa stop supplying the world with raw material. That won't be realistic. And it's not even the real point here. The point is what happens after the material leaves. And right now, almost none of the refining, none of the assembly, and none of the actual value adding steps happens here, right? Not with the cobalt and not with the data itself. The raw input comes from here, though, right? We know that. But the finished, expensive branded products, they usually come from somewhere else. I don't know where, maybe Silicon Valley, Beverly Hills. I mean, every country that's actually closed that gap, the gap that they decided to stop being a supplier and became a producer, did it on purpose, okay, as a policy and not by accident, you know. And if you look at these countries that have done this, you see that they knew that it never happened by hoping the pipeline eventually turns out generous to them. I mean, we are not in the BC's eras, bro, the SC's era where you need to be generous. You know, kindness, when you be so kind out there, people exploit you. And these companies, they're not that kind at all, are they? But anyway, the cobalt is still coming out of the DRC Congo this evening as we speak. The data is still getting labeled in Nairobi this morning, and probably someone younger than you'd guess, for a wage that wouldn't cover a decent lunch in the city that's buying the finished product actually. Maybe the Chicago, New York, you know. Anyway, the raw material is out. The finished products come back at a markup nobody here ever gets to set. You know, different mineral, it's a different decade, but the same pipeline which is still running. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching.